So what's this vortex that we're talking about? The vortex is, you were source energy. That's the vortex. You came forth into this physical body, and as that little infant, you were still vibrationally tied to that vortex. In other words, the vortex is what we mean by the highest vibration and the holding of all of the intentions that you hold from source perspective that are absolutely non-resistant. In other words, the vortex is this holder of your greatest source energy intentionality. So the vortex existed before you were born. You were born, a part of your consciousness came into this body. The larger part of you remains in this non-physical vortex. So here you are in your physical body, sifting through contrast just like you intended to from your non-physical perspective. And when you know what you don't want, you shoot off a rocket of desire about what you do want, because in every conversation, in every point of focus, there is the side of the equation that holds more resistance and the side of the equation that holds no resistance. In other words, wanted and unwanted is part of every point of focus. So when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and you launch this rocket of desire, and this rocket of desire goes into your vortex where your inner being holds it. Your inner being becomes a vibrational match to this new request that you've set forth. Now, usually when you are launching these rockets of desire, you are not likely to follow them right into the vortex, because the whole reason that you launched the rocket to begin with is because you're focused upon what you do not want. That's what your practice is for a while. That's what your proclivity is. And so you're launching this rocket of desire, but you're nowhere near it. And so there is a vibrational separation. Separation is not the perfect word, but it makes the point. There's a vibrational difference between the request, the new and improved version of you, the expanded version of you, and what your practice thought is right here and now. And if there's too much expanse between who you've become and who you're being right now, you feel awful. If there's very little expanse between who you've become and who you're being right now, you feel pretty good. And when you're really a perfect match to who you really are, you feel so wonderful. You feel elation. You feel love. You feel appreciation. You feel really frisky. You feel vivacious. You feel full of yourself. You feel like romping. You feel, someone sent put a comment on one of the forums or posts about the new meditation CD we'll talk about here in a minute. And she said, my dog lies at my feet and listens with me, and then romps more joyfully than I have ever seen him romp. My dog is so affected by this meditation CD. And we say, that's possible. The dog could be picking up on the vibration of it, but more likely, the dog is reflecting back to you your improvement in your vibration. So now there are three things that indicate your vibrational relationship. There's your mood, there's what's manifesting, and there's the way your dog is behaving. It lets you know how you're doing too. So as the point that we're making here is that as you stand outside your vortex, wanting to get in, but outside your vortex, and you make effort to get in other words, I know I'm not in, I need to get in, or I know I don't have enough money, I need to line up with more money. The effort that you make, efforting from outside the vortex, increases the vibration of resistance rather than softening it. And so then the crevasse between where you want to be and where you are gets greater, and that's why sometimes your very own desires don't feel pretty to you. You say things like, I wish I didn't want that. I actually felt better before I knew I wanted that. And we want to say to you, you can never pull back from your desires. You must find a way to align with them. Because once life has caused you to put it into the vortex, you got to line up with it to fulfill that creation that you've set into motion. To demonstrate the point, we've been having a lot of fun with any of these cards. Money and the Law of Attraction is a good one, because that's something that so many people are reaching for. So let's say that you are in a place where there is not as much money as you want or need, and you've decided that you're going to do something about it. And you've heard tell of the most brilliant of brilliant cards that have ever been written in all time and space. We wrote them. These are affirmation cards. They are called Money and the Law of Attraction. So from your place of need or frustration or worry or even fear, you get these cards and you want them to do their magic, and you begin reading, it comes not by magic, damn, but by universal law. Well, that sucks. I can have money and freedom too. How can I break this to my employer? I'm not going to be there, but pay me anyway. Because freedom is what I want, and money is what I want, and so it's up to you. My attention to it invites the essence of it. Yeah. I have control over the thoughts I think. Right. My financial success does not require hard work. Who writes this stuff? There's no shortage of money. The better my story gets, the better my life gets. I don't like these cards at all. So you're getting the point that we are making. We want you to understand that if you are vibrationally too far removed from what you're reaching for, that effort to get there doesn't get you very far. In fact, it usually steps you back, because in the same way, have you ever had a conversation with someone you didn't agree with, and the longer you debated, the more sure you were right, and the more sure they were that they were right, and no common ground was ever discovered? It just got more and more and more aggravated and agitated and animated and out of control. Well, you sort of have that same battle with yourself. If you've decided that the world isn't treating you right, and you've decided that there is unfairness going on, and then you pick up these cards, we expect to find them littered along the highway. Because you'll want to fling them. In other words, you angry birds. You won't like the way these cards make you feel if you're not in the vibrational vicinity of what truth they speak. So it's hopeless for all of you. Go home. So what is the remedy? Well, the remedy is you wait until you're in the vortex. And we want to say to you, you are every day at some point of or other in the vortex. In other words, the vortex will take you in. Sometimes you're not aware of it, but there are many times through the day when you've lost your ability to specifically focus negatively. In other words, you just don't have that kind of staying power. You don't. You don't. Something will distract you. The sun will come up. It will be a beautiful day. A waft of wind will come across your face. A bird will fall. Oh, we'll forget about the birds for a little while. You will find yourself feeling good through the day at some point or another, which means anytime you feel a little relief, you're at least moving in the direction of the vortex, maybe even in there. And what we want to say to you is, you want to do all of your affirming once inside the vortex. So we've called this gathering the Art of Allowing for a long time. And the reason we do is because we want you to understand that what allowing really is no longer doing that thing that holds you out of the vortex. In other words, allowing really implies, we want you to hear this fully, the vortex will take you in unless you're doing something that doesn't allow that. So the art of allowing is the art of letting go enough that the vortex will take you in. But what it really requires is knowing what being in the vortex feels like and deliberately practicing that vibration. Earlier we said, if you're watching CNN or one of the news channels and you're watching it through the evening and you're seeing a repeat of what's going wrong in the world and you're staying tuned to it long enough, it will tune it. You are then allowing your vibration to be tuned to a lower frequency. You're practicing the lower frequency vibration. If you will allow yourself to be in the vortex will tune you. Here's a better way of saying it. The vortex will train your vibration upwards. So every moment that you spend there, especially every conscious moment, every moment that you are feeling some relief from negative emotion, every moment that you are feeling an improved emotion is you allowing the vortex to train your frequency upward. So we've been talking about this vortex, which is summoning you, and if you're in despair, it's summoning you, but the little bit of vortex gravitational pull that it has on you might only bring you to revenge, but it's still calling you. And if you don't dig in revenge, it will call you into anger. And if you don't dig in anger, it will call you into hope. And by the time it has called you to hope, the vortex will take you in. So what we're suggesting to you, because as we feel you here in this room, your normal vibration is not one of despair or revenge or anger. You vacillate for the most part between overwhelmment and frustration and hope and into joy. In other words, that's about where you are most of the time, with an occasional dip into something darker, but usually you're somewhere in the vicinity of that, which means your vortex can take you in if you will allow it. So how might you allow it? Well, the first thing is, notice when you're in and try to milk it. In other words, when you find yourself in the vortex, be as general in your thinking as you can be. Because the more general you are, the less resistant you will be. When you really think about it, when you ponder those deepest, darkest moments that you've ever been in, don't go there, but just theoretically follow us here. You have become really specifically, almost obsessively focused upon something that just took you further and further and further from who you are. Isn't that right? In other words, you got so specific, you remembered what he said, you remember what she said, you remember what he did, you remember what they did, you remember where you were, you remember what you were eating, you remember what you were playing, you remember what song was playing on the radio. In other words, you're specific, and you're specifically resistant to who you are. So the first really helpful rule of thumb to get in the vortex is, when you find yourself feeling negative emotion of any kind, no matter how negative it is, say to yourself, go general, go general, go general. For example, if something is not going well at your place of employment or in your work, and you're thinking about the specifics of it, and you've got yourself all in a knot, and it feels like no one's cooperating and it's not going well, say to yourself, go general, and step back from it and say to yourself something like, well, at least I have a job. Now that might fling you right off into the bushes, but or say something like, this too shall pass, or say something like, all in all, things are going pretty well. In other words, the more general you can become, the more ease you will feel right now. Because we promise you, and this is the point that we want to get across to you like you've never heard it before, you are not ever going to wrestle your problem or your problem maker to the ground and make them stop. It defies all law. You're not going to do it. The more you focus on the problem, the bigger it's going to be, but even more important, the more stuck to it you are going to be. So you got to go general, and you're going to discover as you go general that as you get general, as you get general, as you get general, very general. Oh, the sun came up this morning. That's such a good thing. And I'm still breathing. That's a wonderful thing. Now we know you think that's silly because it's so general and off the point you're trying to make. But if you will stop trying to make the point you're trying to make, the vortex will take you back in. Now, this is the wonderful thing about the vortex. The vortex knows everything you specifically want about all the things you specifically don't want. In other words, all the specifics are in the vortex. You just can't get to the specifics of them when you're tied to the specifics of their opposite. Does that make sense? So by going general, by clearing your mind, by breathing deeply, by focusing on something else, by going general, the vortex will take you in. And as you do it again and again, and you allow the vortex to take you in, the vortex will train, it is our promise to you, your frequency upward to match the frequency of all of those specifics that you have already incrementally been putting into your vortex, sometimes over a long period of time, sometimes the stuff you just put there yesterday or 10 minutes ago. And as you allow your frequency to raise, the specifics of that vortex will begin to reveal themselves to you.